CCC Kids presents The Nativity, as told by Sally Lloyd-Jones in the Jesus Storybook Bible.
Everything was ready. The moment God had been waiting for was here at last. God was coming to help his people just as he promised in the beginning.
But how would he come? What would he be like? What would he do?
The mountains would have bowed down. The seas would have roared. The trees would have clapped their hands. But the earth held its breath. As silent as snow falling, he came in. And when no one was looking in the darkness, he came.
There was a young girl engaged to a man named Joseph. Joseph was the great-great-great-great-great-grandson of King David. One morning, this girl was just minding her own business when suddenly a great warrior of light appeared right there in her bedroom. His name was Gabriel, and he was a special messenger of heaven. When Mary saw this tall, shining person standing there, she was frightened.
You don't need to be scared.
Gabriel said.
God is very happy with you.
Mary looked around to see if perhaps he was talking to someone else.
Mary,
Gabriel said, and laughed with such gladness that Mary's eyes filled with sudden tears.
Mary, you're going to have a baby, a little boy. You will call him Jesus. He is God's own son. He is the one. He is the rescuer.
The God that flung planets into outer space and kept them whirring around and around. The God that made the universe with just a word. The God that could do anything at all was making himself small and coming down as a little baby.
Wait, God was sending a baby to rescue the world.
But it's too wonderful,
Mary said, and felt her heart beating hard.
How can it be true?
Is anything too wonderful for God?
Gabriel asked. So, Mary trusted God more than what her eyes could see, and she believed.
I am God's servant,
She said.
but our God says I will do.
Sure enough, it was just as the angel had said. 9 months later, Mary was almost ready to have her baby.
Now, Mary and Joseph had to take a trip to Bethlehem, the town where King David was from. But when they got there, every room was full. Every bed was taken.
Go away, the innkeepers told them.
There isn't any place for you.
Where would they stay? Soon Mary's baby would come.
They couldn't find any place but a tumble-down stable. So they stayed where the donkeys, the chickens, and the cows, and the horses stayed.
And there, in the stable, in the quiet of the night, God gave the world his wonderful gift. The baby that would change the world was born, his baby son.
Mary and Joseph wrapped him up to keep him warm. They used the animal's feeding trough as a cradle and gazed wonderfully at God's great gift, wrapped in swaddling clothes and lying in a manger.
Mary and Joseph named him Jesus, Emmanuel, which means
God has come to live with us.
because, of course, he had.
The story of the shepherd.
That same night, in amongst the other stars, suddenly a bright new star appeared. Of all the stars in the dark, vaulted heavens, this one shone clear. It blazed in the night and made the other stars look pale beside it.
God put that star there to show where his baby boy was, lighting up the darkness, showing the people the way to him.
Can I say it? You see, God was like a new daddy. He couldn't keep the good news to himself. He'd been waiting all those long years for this moment, and now he wanted to tell everyone.
So he pulled out all the stops. He sent an angel to tell Mary the good news. Then he sent a big choir of angels to sing his happy little song.
Now, where would you send your splendid choir? To a big concert hall, maybe? Or a palace, perhaps? God sent his to a little hillside outside a little town in the middle of the night. He sent all those angels to sing for a raggedy old bunch of shepherds watching their sheep outside Bethlehem.
Remember, in those days, people used to laugh at the shepherds and say they were stinky and rude names, which I can't possibly mention here. But you see, people thought they were old, scrubby old riffraffers.
But God must have thought that those shepherds were very important indeed, because they're the ones who he chose to share the good news to first.
One night, when the shepherds were out in the open fields watching themselves by the campfire, when suddenly the sheep darted, the olive trees rustled. What was that, a wingbeat? Wait for me!
They turned around. Standing in front of them was a huge warrior of light blazing in the darkness. The bright, shining person said. Then as quick as they appeared, the angels left. The shepherds stamped out their fire, raced down a grassy hill, through the gates of Bethlehem, down a narrow cobble street, past an inn, round a corner, through a hedge, until at last they reached a tumble-down stable.
They caught their breath. Then quietly they tiptoed inside and knelt on the dirt floor. They had heard about the promised child, and now he was here, heaven's son, the maker of the stars, a baby sleeping in his mother's arms.
This baby was to be like a bright star shining in the sky that night, a light to light up the whole world, chasing away darkness and helping people to see.
And the darker the night got, the brighter the star would shine.
The story of the wise men.
Far in the east, some clever men saw the very same star that God had put in the sky. When Jesus was born, they knew it was a sign. A baby king had been born.
They had been waiting for the star. They knew it would come.
And I'm sure if you've been there, you've heard us laughing and dancing until the sun came up.
At dawn, we packed up our camels, wrapped gifts for the baby, and brought our most special treasures of all, frankincense, gold, and myrrh. Special, sparkly, lovely, smelling, gleaming things just right for a king.
I'm sure if you'd seen us, you would thought we were kings because we were so rich and clever and important looking. And together, with all that expensive stuff, we set off on our journey.
We rode our camels across endless deserts, up steep, steep mountains, down into deep, deep valleys, through raging rivers, over grassy plains, night and day and night, from hours that turned to days, that turned to weeks, that turned to months, until they finally reached Jerusalem.
Jerusalem was by far the most important city for miles around, and as anyone can tell you, that's where a palace would be, and kings are born in palaces, so that's where we went. But we were in for a big surprise.
So we went to King Herod. Surely he knew where the baby was, but
he didn't. In fact, he didn't like the sight of a new king. It made him cross. He didn't want anyone to be king except him.
But Herod's advisor told us what was written in their books, what God had said about the baby king.
Go to Bethlehem. That's where you'll find it.
Suddenly, the star that they had seen in the east started moving again, showing them the way. So they followed the star into a little town called Bethlehem. They traveled out of the nice part of town, into the not so nice part of town, into the really not so nice part of town, down a little dirt track, and the star stopped right over a little house.
We knelt before the little king, took off our rich willow turbans and our gleaming golden crowns, and bowed our heads to the ground.
All kids, stand up. Let's celebrate our king.
And heaven and nature sing. J to the O to the Y. I got the J to the O to the Y. J to the O to the Y. I got the J to the O to the Y. I got the J. Come on. To the Y. I got the J. Joy to the world, the Lord is come.